Wholeness and balanced vibrations. What I'm going to be showing you today are a few techniques that I use to de-stress. I have heard these called many different things: acupuncture points, the K27 meridian point. One of them is called the Shen Men. They're in a lot of esoteric knowledge. They refer to these points, but not everybody always uses them. So I've started applying them in my own life, and I've seen profound results. The first of these is the K27 meridian point. What that is if we take our middle fingers and we reach down on our collarbone, somewhere right around in here, you should find that there are two slight divots where there's almost like a nerve that fits into the channel. These are the K27 points, and what we can do is we can actually use these to reset the body's energy points. Now, two methods about this. One is doing each side individually, and one is doing them together. Neither is right or wrong. They're both just separate methods. The first one would be the individual one, and simply would be taking your right hand, going to your left side, taking your left hand and placing it down on your belly button. Now what we'll do is digging our fingers into that point, and there should be a bit of tenderness and a bit of uncomfortability here. We'll hold for roughly 10 seconds. After doing that, we'll kind of massage it out for another 10. And after we've done that, we're going to give it a nice solid taps on the collarbone. Now once more, this should not feel good. This is something that we're doing to relieve the stress. After tapping it for a while, we'll bring that energy down and we'll throw it right out of the body. Same thing, we'll come over here, hold, 10 seconds, rub it out, 10 seconds, tap, 10 seconds, bring it out the body. Now, one of the benefits to doing each side separately is that it allows you to kind of sit back and gauge if they actually had any effect. I find that when I do that and I sit for a moment before going to the other side, I'll actually notice that one side feels slightly heavier, or perhaps there's a tingling sensation in one side. But nonetheless, it is nice in the beginning to assure yourself that these methods have an effect. Now, typically what I do nowadays is I just come up and I do them both at the same time. Something along these lines: circle, tap, 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 bring it out almost like you're filling yourself up, and throw them right out the body. Now, moving on. The second method that I use quite often is simply regarded as the Shen Men. It's an acupuncture point on your ear. If you look in your ear and you feel in the top portion, there's the little divot. It's almost like a pocket where you'll find your thumb fits pretty nicely into it. If you place your finger into this point, and you'll notice there's a ridge, and at the end of the ridge there should be a slight, almost like a ball, a raised point. Placing your middle finger on the top of your ear and your thumb on the raised point, we put pressure for about, I would say, 10 to 15 seconds. After a while, we kind of do a rotation motion, and imagine like a thread, you're pulling that energy right out of your head. We throw that away because we no longer need that energy. Again, I'll repeat the process on the other side because it does start to feel a little bit imbalanced if I only apply attention to one. So, now that we've done both sides, this again is another de-stressing technique, and a simpler one that you can do without, if you find yourself a bit self-conscious of tapping yourself in public. Some people find that a little bit embarrassing, I suppose. But one thing that I like to remember when it comes to throwing the energy out of the body is to be mindful of those around us. So if I have pets or people around me, wherever I'm throwing that energy, I try to make sure that I'm not throwing it directly into them. It's just a personally held belief, but one that I feel is very important. Moving along, one thing that I like to do in the mornings as I wake is a mindful connection of the right to the left and the top to the bottom. And how this goes is something like this. I take my right hand and I reach around my back as far and as close as I can to the spine. After doing that, I drag my fingers across my stomach until I reach my belly button, and then I'll push that right out my leg. I'll come to the other side and we'll repeat the process. And right out the leg. I usually do this about 5 times, simply representative for, first of all, my life path number. Secondly, this realm being referred to as Phi. or the physical reality, or 5. But again, personally held beliefs. Feel free to adapt any of these to your own understanding. Moving on from that point, I have what I call the third eye reminder. The third eye reminder is about as simple as it sounds. It's just kind of waking up my third eye and telling higher self, hey, take note of this. This is something we want to log. In my personal life, I find that often I forget small details or things that sometimes I find important, only to re-remember them later. And so what I do is anytime I come across some knowledge or a situation that I feel enlightens or awakens me in some way, I'll just give me a little bit of a tap right there on the third eye. And this is just saying, hey, remember this, just a simple exercise and something that starts to program, I have found myself in a more permanent way. Now, one other simple de-stressing technique was taught to me originally as evolutionary exercise number 1. And what this is quite simply scratching your head. Now, you may have noticed that a lot of people in high stress situations will go to this move right here where they start freaking out and they start running their fingers through their hair and they don't really know why. But what if I told you it was actually activating pressure points on your scalp, and that instead of waiting till we got into extremely high stress situations, that we could do this preemptively and relieve the stress already. Another evolution of this idea starts with the third eye and simply involves rotating the fingers in a circular motion. I like to go both directions, but ultimately outward, in and up, as we talk about, and bringing them up, bringing that energy down, out the body. Now I like to repeat this process all the way along the head until I get down to the base of the spine, at which I, again, repeat the process. Doing this creates a bit of an energy flowing effect. It can send some tingles throughout your body, and is very similar to if you've ever had someone come up and crack an egg on your head with their fingers. My personal belief is that essentially all along we were doing Reiki and we did not know it. So that is why these techniques I would refer to as self-Reiki. And that is how they were taught to me. One other exercise I like to come up here along the temple and place my middle fingers in the soft divots on either side of the eyes. I like to give myself a nice rotation in a backwards motion, all right? And we're gonna go back, 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 back until we get to the point where the ear meets the skull or the side of the face. And we're gonna get along deep into that divot and move down until we get right there underneath the ear where the jaw meets the ear. We'll bring that energy down, 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 past the collarbone and out the body. Now, why it's important to me and how it was taught to me to bring the energy past the collarbone is the collarbone essentially is the gateway between our head space and our body. So it's important to first remove that from your head space to think clearly, and from that point move it out of the body, which is a bit more resilient than perhaps our mental state is at times. Another one that I quite often use is an activation of the hand chakras as it was taught to me. Now, regardless of your beliefs, practicing this will generate some interesting effects. How this looks is we take our hands up and down, opposing of each other. It doesn't matter which way you start. There's no right or no wrong. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a fist as tight as possible, and then we're going to extend our arms and our fingers out as far as we can. We're going to repeat this for about 5 times. Now, each time putting a good amount of emphasis on the stress and the pushing and not rushing through these by any means. And after we've done 5, we'll rotate our hands the other way. We'll repeat the process 5 times as well. Again, feel free to adapt the number of times you do to your own personal understanding, as it's what you relate with that is the most important. At the end of both sets of however many you choose to do, I like to focus directly on the wall ahead or just the space ahead. Without looking at my hands, I like to bring them together and allow the fingers to naturally meet. Bringing my hands up, and a little bit of a bow to honor my own divinity and those around me. These exercises, I've got one more, excuse me. This one is pretty interesting, and when it was taught to me made a lot of sense. So if you find yourself hunching over or finding it a problem to erect yourself upright, a lot of people immediately think that that's related to some back issues. However, what I have found and what was taught to me is if you reach right here, kind of in the soft spot, when you raise your arms, it creates this little flap. And if you grab it, you'll notice a lot of times it feels pretty sore. Well, if you massage it out, you find that what's actually occurring is instead of the back causing the problems, these muscles right here are actually pulling the shoulders forward. And when we massage these out, it not only releases another pressure point, but it also is the location of lymph nodes and many other esoteric energy centers, as they're referred to, or energy buttons. So by massaging this out, keeping that energy flowing, we can find that we release them. Now, when this was explained to me, one interesting tidbit was said that when we were infants, we would cry, and whenever we would get upset, someone would come along and they would just pick you up right there. However, as we got older, at a certain point, they stopped picking us up. And though there is still a child inside of us, every now and then we have to comfort it ourselves. So it is okay and it's totally acceptable, and I often will find myself coming in here like this and just kind of telling myself, hey man, it's all right. I know there's a child inside, but the adult, he's here too, and he's going to take care of you. And it's important, in my understanding, to honor both the infant and the adept within. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to watch this and being open to me sharing this information. For a very long time, I've felt like my knowledge has fallen on deaf ears, and it gives me a great deal of joy to finally be able to share these techniques with people who are open to it. Reflections of myself, and it's beautiful that more and more of them are appearing as I delve deeper inwards. Now, how I use these techniques and other methods is I actually have used these techniques to remove my dependency from substance abuse. This happened when I realized self-medication for myself could only occur if I was medicating with self. So through these techniques, I've allowed myself to get high, as you would say, off of my own body. However, once more, I just wanted to state wholeness and balanced vibrations, and I appreciate and love you. Anything I have in my understanding is always yours. All you need to do is ask. Thank you.